An unknown woman was found wrapped in plastic and stuffed in a cardboard box in the middle of nowhere. What did this woman know that made someone throw her from a helicopter? On October 8, 1976, Norman Scoogs from Benton, Indiana was out in his field on his combine to harvest his corn crop when he nearly ran over a large white cardboard box in the middle of his field. Norman assumed that it was just trash dumped by local kids, and so he went to move it. But when he tried to pick it up, it was too heavy for just one person to lift it. So he went back home and got his father-in-law, and together they picked it up and put it in the bed of Norman's pickup truck and went home. By the size and weight of the box, he suspected it was more than just trash, and he started to feel nervous on the way home. Once he got home, he called the sheriff and told them about his find. Scoogs had every right to be nervous. Unfortunately, finding a body in a field in Indiana isn't unusual. The rural state is a known dumping ground for criminals in large cities such as Chicago. While waiting for the police, Norman's 16-year-old son Curtis decided to open the box. And as he got closer, he was greeted with an overpowering smell of what he described as cheap perfume. After cutting through the tape and rope, he partially opened the box, and that's when the Skoog family saw a black mass tightly packed into sheets of plastic that was wrapped with rope and masking tape. The box wasn't trash. It was possibly something worse, and it was enough for Norman to call the police again. As soon as Sheriff Donald Steele arrived, he cut a slit into the plastic, revealing the decomposing body of a woman. He just confirmed what the Skoogs feared. Sheriff Steele immediately called Indiana State Police, and Norman Skoog took on the duty of driving the body and the box to the county coroner. Inside the box was a body of a woman. She was stuffed into a white box that was only 3 feet long, 2 feet wide, and 1 foot deep. Her knees were pressed tightly against her chest. Her hands were tied under her knees. Her head was wrapped in a paper and cloth towels, then covered in 2 small garbage bags. The rest of her body was wrapped in plastic carpet runners, tied using rope and masking tape. And she was wearing a green pantsuit. The cheap perfume had actually hidden the smell of decay that was only noticeable once the plastic was cut. Her face was described as dark as a bad bruise, and her facial features were distorted because the plastic had pressed against them. When the coroner performed her autopsy, it was revealed that the woman was dead for about 7 to 10 days before her body was found. The victim was a white woman between the ages of 55 and 65 with graying sandy brown hair and stood 5'2" and was about 160 pounds. She also had ragged nails and had calloused hands. She was shot in the back of the head, but in such a way that the bullet went straight through her skull and through her right eye. The coroner speculated that the killer used a small caliber gun, such as a .22 or a .38. So, where did she come from? The Skoogs farm was about 6 miles north from the main highway US Route 52 and was only reachable through a series of country twists and back roads. According to Skoogs, he had 40 acres of land, and the box was placed about 9 rows deep into his cornfield. Strangely, there was no evidence of anyone walking through the field. Also, moving something that heavy would show evidence of broken vegetation. Norman was quoted, "I really don't think anybody could have carried that box through my cornfield without me being able to notice some broken places on the stalks." And it was estimated that the box had to be placed between 12 to 18 hours before it was found because it was raining the night before, but the box was dry. During the investigation, the police heard some rather strange witness statements. At least 3 witnesses confirmed that on the day that the box was found, a helicopter was seen hovering around the cornfield. One of the witnesses said that the helicopter was a Bell Jet Ranger. These are expensive helicopters typically used by wealthy people and corporations. This theory is possibly substantiated because an outline of an exposed area with circular scattered debris was seen near the box. It was only visible when the police flew over to take photos of the area. This pattern is usually made by a helicopter making a swift descent and departure. During the autopsy, the coroner saw that the victim recently had a radical mastectomy. A radical mastectomy is a surgical treatment for breast cancer that involves removal of the breast, pectoral muscle, and all underarm lymph nodes. She also had a scar that went from the sternum to her stomach. It's likely that this scar was created to repair the mastectomy surgical site. With this information, Sheriff Steele also searched the medical records for women who had this surgery in Indiana and surrounding states in hopes of identifying the victim, but this was another dead end. And what about the box? The box was sealed using furnace tape and clothesline rope. It had a factory stamp that said wardrobe bottom and a handwritten note that said hall closet. But it didn't have any company logos, so it was suspected that this box was sold directly to consumers. 2 years later, in 1978, the sheriff got a tip from a woman who found a Texas license plate in her son's bedroom. She told the sheriff that it was found after the box was discovered in a ditch near Norman School's Cornfield, and the license plate appeared to have been torn off a car. Sheriff Steele contacted the Texas police, and they were able to trace the car to a man who had a criminal record. The man, who was never identified, admitted to driving the car to Indiana 10 days before the body was found. The Texas police suspected that the victim could have been the man's wife, who had been separated since 1964. The woman was originally from Alabama, but was believed to be living in Oklahoma before her disappearance. The police searched for her, but she was never found, and they couldn't match the woman to the victim's body because they couldn't find any pictures of her even after contacting the family in Alabama. And it was noted that the Houston suspect cooperated with the police. The police worked on the theory that the Benton County Jane Doe was essentially at the wrong place at the wrong time. But we have a theory. We believe that the Benton County Jane Doe was the Houston suspect's missing wife. The time frame of his trip to Indiana matches the woman's estimated time of death. The Houston suspect could have asked his wife to go to Indiana for business or criminal activity. Something went wrong and she was murdered in someone's home. This would explain why her body was wrapped in household items such as a carpet runner and furnace tape. The body stayed in the home until they dumped it, and perfume was used to cover the smell of the decay. Whoever did it were not professionals, and they just got lucky that the bullet exited the body. We believe the killers were wealthy and had access to a helicopter, then dumped the body in a cornfield to prevent the murder from being tied to them. However, this theory doesn't explain everything, like why the Houston suspect's license plate was found near the Scoops' farm. But this is just a theory, and theories don't solve murders. A few weeks after her discovery, she had to be buried in a pauper's grave without her identity. In 2019, a team of forensic experts from the Human Identification Center at the University of Indianapolis exhumed her body in the hopes of finding her identity. Her body was exhumed, DNA samples were taken, as well as dental records submitted for comparison. It gives hope that one day this mystery will be solved, but unfortunately, as of 2022, there have been no positive hits in identifying her. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. So, what are your theories about what led to a 60-year-old woman to get dumped in a cornfield? Tell us in the comments. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe.